Running commentary. We are exploring listening to albums. It is a lost art form. We took an hour out of our day. We switched off the phones. We switched off the computers. We did not answer the door. We sat down and we listened to the artist's vision and concept. The Devils, Dark Circles. So this was one of my producer selections. He felt that this would be a good choice for us to look at because it had a very interesting backstory. So let's talk about the backstory first before we talk about the music. Before Duran Duran became this international success that they were, starting in 1981, they had been a different lineup. They had comprised Stephen TinTin Duffy, who had been to art school with Nick Rhodes, and I believe John Taylor was in there as well, and some other guy whose name I've got written down here somewhere. And Stephen TinTin Duffy, I don't know, and actually Tintin, I guess, because he looked like the cartoon character Tintin is where that name came from, had a hissy fit, I guess, or got upset, or there was a break. There was a break. I'm going to look at my notes again to find out what that break was about. And probably made the worst mistake of his career and left Duran Duran in like 1980, right before they were about to hit the big time. Or not, because what The Devil's Dark Circles is a rendering of what that album might have been. Here they are in 2002 when this album was released. And Nick Rhodes and Stephen TinTin Duffy meet at a fashion event. No doubt the booze is flowing or whatever else it is that's flowing at one of these events. And the two of them get together and they start reminiscing about the old days. And they decide to embark on this project to make an album of what the Duran Duran's first album may have been if they'd stayed together. Another important point to mention with the Devil's Dark Circles album is that they had very earnestly tried to recreate the sound using the instrumentation from when the band were in formation during 78 and 79. I don't know how successful I feel that they were with this. I feel as though they almost, on the early OMD sounding track, which is the beginning of Barbarella's, I feel like they kind of get it. But other than that, it sort of winds up in that sort of Visage territory, which is 81. So I don't know how successful they were. I think that they may have had slightly rose-colored glasses on with regards to achieving that 78, 79 synth-pop sound. B-52 style background, they have these females with these very kind of like the jarring, not jarring, but their voices, these female back singers cannot be ignored. They bring the polish and the glamour. That's what Duran Duran do with females. So this is in keeping. This was the right thing for Duran Duran to do because Duran Duran really use, if you think of Union of the Snake, if you think of the Reflex, they've all got these kind of big background singers going on. That's what made Duran Duran, I think, really this international success was they had a sensibility of that big background vocal style, which I'm guessing comes from like sort of a Gimme Shelter kind of vibe. That's where I'm guessing it comes from. Or Bowie did it as well, didn't he? He used the background singers. I use the background singers. You got to use the background singers. If you haven't got the best voice in the world, but you want to express yourself, you're going to use really fantastic background singers. And in this case, I don't know who the girls are. I actually didn't research that. But they really feature on this album. There's no ignoring them. Big Store, it has, again, it's Visage pretensions. I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm getting Visage from this. I'm okay with that. But, you know, especially with Steve Strange passing, and I'm hearing it after the fact. You know, Steve Strange was still alive when this album was out, but Dark Circles, Dark Circles reminds me of Notorious, which, is that a good thing? I don't know. Like, I'm not really that in love with Notorious. I know that it was like a big Duran Duran record and kind of slick and kind of polished and a big hit in America and sampled by Biggie and all of that, but I was never really a big fan of Notorious. I liked the rest of the album, but Notorious as a single was kind of not where I was at. Things kind of turn around for me with Signals in Smoke. It's my favorite so far. The album reaches a point of vitality here. It's almost as though they find themselves on this fourth track. It's like, oh, this would have been really great. Actually, I think this is far better than anything they could have achieved in 1980 in terms of the Signals in Smoke song. Come Alive. Yeah, let's remake Roxy Music's Love is the Drug. Let's do that. Daft Punk's sensibility is kind of annoying. It's like, I do like it, but it's sort of annoying because I know that it's coming from Roxy Music, and I know that's who Duran Duran are, but that derivative thing for me can be really problematic. I want to know that reference is there, but I don't want it to be so in my face that I'm thinking Love is the Drug the whole way through the song, and that's kind of what happens. Hawks Do Not Share is track number 6, a very interesting title for sure. Has a sort of creepy Invisible Sun style riff throughout from the Police. I far prefer Invisible Sun. It's like great song by the Police. Hawks Do Not Share. Yeah, arty farty for sure. Definitely art school. Definitely. I can see that someone would write this in earnest at 18 or 19 years of age and think it was a great song. It's not really translating too well on the album. New Haven Dieppe apparently is the first song written. It sounds like the Corgis. So I wanted to go and buy this album, or buy some of the songs, not all of the songs. There were 3 songs in the albums I wanted to buy, and this was one of them, New Haven Dieppe, and I can't buy the album digitally. So anyone from the camp of the Devil's Dark Circles, you need to pull your finger out and make this digitally available so that we can buy it for you, because this is one of the songs I would buy. It's just a great song. It's written well. It's so classically British. New Haven to Dieppe, that's a ferry crossing. That's taking you from the South Shore of England to the north coast of France. That's a genius kind of concept. I love stuff like that. Apparently it's not that original because it's taken from a book that is written, or there's an essay out there that has the title New Haven Dieppe. World Exclusive kind of grew on me the second time. Aztec Moon, big store is mentioned in Aztec Moon. What's so great about a big store? Is this like a department store? Like, I don't know what this is. And this kind of makes me think of the Stephen TinTin Duffy influence. I don't know, I kind of imagine as a younger man he might have been the kind of person that was really excited by perfume counters and women's lingerie departments. I don't know. I don't quite understand this fascination with big store. Aztec Moon, I'm like this with it. Lost Decade has a Bowie feel. Background, very distinctly someone else's style. These background vocals, when you hear them, hopefully someone viewing this episode will copy me in as to what do I hear. I hear a completely ripped off background vocal style. I've mentioned it already, but it's somebody else's style. It's in earnest. It sounds like early OMD. Barbarella's, nice chords. It's a history lesson. This is a club that was in Birmingham, Barbarella's. This is where all the guys went to do the punk thing. Art school students. You have to remember, punk, and again, in researching the album, I watched extensive interviews of Stephen TinTin Duffy and Nick Rhodes sitting there chewing the fat over this, and they're far more interesting as performers than they are as speakers. So to sit there and actually to listen through the process that went through. But what they describe at Barbarella's was this punk club scene. And you have to understand what punk was. This was unadulterated, heterosexual, white male, anger, aggression, boozing, heroin, disillusionment with anything glitzy, poppy, anything fluffy bunny, anything like that. This was a man's music. And apparently when the early Duran Duran got on the stage at a punk club in the middle of Birmingham, which was an industrial town in the late 70s, they were really kind of frightened to go on the stage because they had a punk audience. These people spit. These people do this thing, like there's a word for it, where they go like this, up and down. They kind of like almost like a mosh pit, but they jump up and down vertically. And what's it called?
Pogo.
Pogoing. They pogo. And this was not in keeping with the very delicate sensibility of Duran Duran's early stage presence of Stephen "TinTin" Duffy, Nick Rhodes. And remember, Nick Rhodes wore more makeup than the entire cast of Charlie's Angels. We have the tinsel... Oh, I didn't finish talking about Barbarella's. It's a great song. I want it now, but I can't buy it because it's not available digitally online. Neil Barker, please, if you can get hold of this for me, please let me know. A great song, and it just takes you back, and you care. You actually care about the beginning of Duran Duran, who took their name from a character in the movie Barbarella. So it all ties in. It all ties in. It all connects, and I'm really thankful for this song and for this suggestion from our producer. The Tinsel Ritual, as the final track leads in, I'm much more open to this side of the band's style. You know, I've gone back to Come Alive. I suppose it's terribly stylish. On track 6, you know, Hawks Do Not Share. Didgeridoo style noise playing throughout. It's mellow and tranquilizing. That was the word I came up with. And then on New Haven Dieppe, yeah, it doesn't sound like the rest of the album, which is why I really like it. It was recorded in 2001 and 2002 at Air Studios, which you can do if you're Nick Rhodes from Duran Duran. It was released in the summer of 2002 in the UK and released in May 2003 in the USA. The band played live only twice, once in London and once in Cologne in Germany. Andy Strange is a producer on this album, and throughout I was thinking that this had a big audio dynamite sensibility, and it turns out that he had worked with them as well as helping to build a recording studio with Stephen Duffy in Robbie Williams' Beverly Hills Master Bedroom. So there's the connection there, but I could definitely hear a big audio dynamite sensibility on this album on certain tracks. Vivienne Westwood was the event that they met at. Terribly artsy-fartsy. You know, Vivienne Westwood, Malcolm McLaren. Listen, I love this lineage. If anything to do with Malcolm McLaren, Sex Pistols, I mean, I kind of get into this. I like, you know, we've talked about the Pretenders who worked at the sex shop. You're seeing that the connections, the political association of the music scene and how all of these bands came from a cluster. Very rarely did any of them originate solely from their own, like, pod, like Bowie, really, who, from what I can gather, was just sort of a alien creature, like almost like in The Man Who Fell to Earth. The album concept here is that this potentially could have been Duran Duran's first album had Stephen Duffy not left. Had the Devils been what Duran Duran wound up sounding like, I don't think the band would have been 1/10 as successful. And I'll tell you why. It's the same reason that the Human League needed to change their lineup. The music's almost too private to succeed. You can't play this out in a big venue and make it work. I am definitely happy I crossed paths with this album. The songs I like on here, I really like, and I'm going to get them as soon as I can. If anyone has them, please, will you send them to me? The others, by and large, sound like parallel renderings of other people's styles and ideas, which I am seldom a fan of. And for that reason, the Devils' Dark Circles scores 66%.